Hello and welcome to Part of the People with me, Graeme Pryce. Have you ever been asked to choose between a rock and a hard place? Been given the choice of a slap round the head, a kick in the balls or a punch in the face? Have you been told you have the choice between sniffing a turd, sniffing a cup of sick or sniffing a tramp's arsehole? Well, I'd imagine that was how Kemi Badenoch felt when she realised she had to look among the remaining dregs of the Conservative Party and find a new Home Secretary. I suppose we should probably be thankful that she never chose Desmond Swain or Christopher Chope, but I suppose even an ingrate idiot like Badenoch could see they aren't fit to hold a position in a queue for the nemesis at Alton Towers, let alone a ministerial role. Eventually, she decided to inflict Chris Philp upon us as Home Secretary. A man who looks continually surprised by the bullshit falling out of his Tory face hole. A man whose relationship with decency and honesty is as loose as an idiot's shoelaces. A man whose name literally sounds like somebody trying to pretend they haven't just thrown up a little bit of vomit in the back of the mouth. Chris Philp. Chris Philp. See what I mean? Surprisingly enough, I think Chris Philp is a fully fledged Tory twat. And I'll tell you why, right after this. I was just looking at my channel analytics and I noticed that 53% of people who watch my videos weren't subscribed. The pain. Come on, just have a quick check that you've subbed, liked and rang the bell. Make a skinny old scouser a little bit happier today. I'd imagine it will come as no surprise whatsoever to anybody to find out that Chris Philp attended St Olave's Grammar School in Orpington, Bromley, before studying physics at Oxford University. Putting Oxford aside, St Olave's, it's supposed to be St Olive from On the Bus's school, but they got the name wrong when they were naming it. No, it isn't. I'm taking the piss. But it is one of those that treads that weird line between claiming to be a state school but operating with all the pompous autocratic bias that public schools have. So much so, in fact, that the headmaster had to resign after it was revealed that the school was using extremely biased and wealth-centric means to decide who cannot and cannot attend, and deliberately making entry into the sixth form incredibly difficult to attain, for us plebs. Parents threatened legal action against the school, which was what prompted the headmaster to resign, and an inquiry was launched, which reported extremely critically in 2018. It's still open though. I would imagine it's a fully fledged Tory youth camp. But officially, and in the records, Chris Philp did not attend a private school. He's probably one of the few Home Secretaries that didn't. But let's not pretend he went to the local comp with his tuna paste butties and an apple in a netto bag for his lunch. No, it's not that kind of school. People like that don't get to high positions in the Tory party, do they? Well, except for Lee Anderson. Look what happened there. So Chris Philp has been an MP for quite a while, and he was present throughout many of the piss-taking corrupt bullshit that the Tories put us through while they were in office. In fact, he supported all the ways to culprits. Even while the whole country was completely disgusted at the betrayal, dishonesty and arrogance of Boris hide-in-a-fridge Johnson, Chris Philp stood by him and wasn't among those who resigned in disgust at his dishonesty and unfitness for leadership. Obviously, this wasn't because he had any faith in Johnson's honesty. Even a small child with extreme learning difficulties who is weekly twatted in the head with a 15-pound lump hammer can see that Johnson is not a decent or honest man. Now, most of us knew he was a fucking liar in 2010, but I'd imagine Chris thought that his loyalty would be rewarded with a position where he could steal, embezzle and fraudulently inappropriate public funds for him and his family and friends if he stood by Johnson. I mean, supporting Johnson is one thing. One disgusting, pathetic and utterly terrible thing that should really disqualify anybody from public service. But he didn't stop there. No. Philp sickeningly threw his support behind Liz Truss as well. He commented, "Great to see sterling strengthening on the back of the new UK growth plan," as Kwasi Kwarteng announced Lettuce Lizzie's mini budget that literally destroyed the economy. I mean, this shows the sheer delusion of the man, doesn't it? He was so sure that the UK was ready for utterly stupid and incredibly damaging right-wing fiscal policies that he supported it before he even stood back to assess the damage that it had caused. Sterling was not being strengthened by Kwasi and Lizzie's batshit bullshit buffoonery. Now, in fact, it turned out he'd thrown his full support behind one of the worst prime ministers in UK history and believed the sheer nonsense of one of the most useless chancellors to ever disgrace the office. I'm not really surprised, though. Are you? Fuck's sake. For a man that went to a pretty reasonably posh school and then attended Oxford, a place well known for churning out just as many overprivileged and arrogant twats as decently educated individuals, Mr. Philp is apparently not a very, very smart man. Though I haven't said that, he's smart enough to get himself a position as Shadow Home Secretary and earn £80,000 a year. So, maybe he's got a few more cogs turning up there than we realise. Or maybe he's just a lucky idiot who happens to get involved with the Tories at exactly the right time. You tell me. Is Philp a genius or a genital wart on society? Apparently, during a meeting with high-ranking officials from Tesco in 2018, Mr. Flippy choked on a cocktail sausage. Now, thankfully, he managed to pull through, and the negotiations continued, and Mr. Philp managed to convince Tesco, who made £195 million in profit in 2018, to donate £200 to every constituency in which they had a store. Really changing the fucking world for the better there, aren't you, Chris? A whole £200, eh? When asked questions about the Tories' ludicrously stupid Rwanda plan during an episode of Question Time in 2020, Chris had to check with an audience member whether Rwanda and the Congo were the same place. Now, I was too busy smoking Super Kings or Dorchesters in the bushes during geography in school. But even I know that was a fucking stupid question. And he asked an audience member of the public on live camera. There's various levels of stupidity to that, isn't it? It's like a sort of weird right-wing glass onion of dumbassery, isn't it? Absolutely. Firstly, his geographical knowledge is fucking pathetic considering the education he had. But secondly, he was too stupid to realise that asking an audience member that question on a live TV show would show him up as a complete and utter crayon-gobbling dumbass. From saying that the public should make citizens' arrests on shoplifters to saying Germany should try harder to control the flow of small boats into the channel, despite Germany not actually having any coastline from which small boats flow into the channel. Mr. fucking Flippy has shown again and again and again that he has less cognitive skill than the average fucking Doberman. It's been ages since I made one of these videos and couldn't rely on said targeted twat voting record to make one of me points. I can do here though, and I intend to. Chris Philp's voting record is a doozy of right-wing ignorant hatred and misinformed nonsense, as most Tory MPs' voting records are, and as you would expect. Let's just give him an inch here though. I have to admit, he generally votes against measures to restrict human rights. Not always. Sometimes he's in favour of measures that restrict human rights, but sometimes he votes against them. Let's not dwell on that slight glint of decency from him though, because he's consistently voted for a much stricter and more unfair asylum system. He's consistently voted for making it much easier to remove someone's British citizenship. He's consistently voted for mass surveillance of people's online communications and activities. And he's consistently voted against reducing the maximum amount an individual may be required to contribute to their social care costs, or the dementia tax, as it was called during Theresa May's tenure, and consistently voted for a reduction in spending on welfare benefits. Now, just bear in mind, this isn't a reduction in employment benefits. No, I checked exactly what he voted for. That'd be bad enough, obviously. I mean, people who are just find themselves unemployed don't deserve to starve in the streets like the Tories think to do. But also a reduction in disability benefits. Let's just be clear here. Chris Philp thinks that guy that lives at the end of your street, that's got cerebral palsy and will spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair and has absolutely no possibility of pulling himself up by the bootstraps, should live in even more abject poverty than he does now. Chris Philp thinks he's a fucking scrounger, the cheeky disabled bastard expecting to be able to afford to pay his rent and eat. Who does he think he is? What a guy, hey. Mr. Philp has some strong views on small boats crossing the channel illegally. Well, actually, let's rephrase that. Mr. Philp rarely cares about the votes of people who have strong views on small boats crossing the channel illegally. Now, obviously, I believe that every single Tory has absolutely no issue whatsoever with misleading the public and deliberately lying to them about Labour, the Lib Dems, Farage, immigration, benefits, the Green Party, Keir Starmer, Angela Rayner, Rachel Reeves, Liz Kendall, Wes Streeting. Oh, they're prepared to tell lies about all. Jeremy Corbyn, how many lies did they tell about him? The government policy, they're prepared to lie about that, yeah. They're prepared to tell any lie they can think of to get back into office so that they can continue the piss-taking, asset-stripping, disgusting pantomime of a government that they operated in the last 14 years. Crispy Filch isn't very good at it, though. Let's give him his due. I mean, he does at least try. He tries hard to lie to the public convincingly. He tries so hard that he even looks like he believes his own bullshit sometimes and thinks he can actually convince the public it's true. As I've said before, I sometimes wonder if these Tory twatwits forget that Google or the Hansard reports exist. During a recent interview, Mr. Philp tried to suggest Labour are failing us all because boat crossings had risen 61% since they took office in the latter half of 2024. Bastards. Well, I agree that number is a problem, obviously. This is the reason it's so easy for people like Nigel Farage to convince every dumbass in the country that they should care more about immigration than absolutely anything else, no matter what the state of their lives is like. But with a population of 66 million, 54 million of them are white people. And I'm alright with those numbers. Are you? What Mr. Philp hadn't mentioned was that during the same period in 2023, boat crossings increased by 70%. In 2022, between July and January, it was 171%. And in 2021, it was 217%. He thinks that somehow those figures have disappeared into the ether and, we can't find them. Or does he? Let's play a game, as that weird little prick on the tricycle with the curls on his cheeks would say. If you think that Chris Philp knew those figures, but just said it because he knows the reform voters he's trying to tempt back to the Tories are too stupid to check up then leave the word liar in the comments. If you think he's genuinely too stupid to understand the figures, hadn't looked properly and just didn't know what he was talking about, then leave the word stupid in the comments. I'll count them up and let you know the verdict in future. Is he a liar or is he stupid? But I am prepared to accept both. Thank you for watching if you've gotten this far. I can't say this video has been difficult to write because Chris Philp is such an utterly incompetent twat of such megalithic proportions, as are most modern day Tory MPs really, as are most right wing MPs really. You only have to look across the pond to see the ultimate conclusion of voting for right wing liars, don't you? But I wouldn't put him in the same sort of category as Patel or Duncan Smith or Badenoch, you know, people who have genuinely evil intentions for the country. Although it also hasn't been like when I did Jeremy Hunt and found out that he's just a bumbling idiot who just ended up in the Tory party because he was an overprivileged little shit and it's natural. No, Chris Philp is somewhere in between those two extremes, a bit like an offensive right-wing perineum. Now, I love writing these videos, and I haven't even branched out to include any international twats yet, like Musk or Putin or Trump. But if you'd like me to, subscribe and let me know that it's what you want from me, and we'll get there eventually. There's a lot of twats in the world, and I've got a lot to say about all of them. If you want to offer your support for the channel and contribute to my new camera fund so that I can start doing live streams soon, then you'll find the links for Patreon, PayPal and the Buy Me a Coffee page lurking surreptitiously in the descriptions box, and you'll find the join button for memberships below. From now on, I think the 5 reason videos will just be the ones where I'll do a shout out, because I got confused when I started trying to do one for every video, and I never go back and watch my old videos, so I'm never sure which ones I've done in the past. But I'm going to start writing it down. James Horner is the latest Patreon, and I massively appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Now, obviously, that isn't all I have to say, but it is as much of what I've got to say as I'm going to say today. Ta-ra-la. Small boats crossing the channel. Well, let's rephrase that. Actually, Mr. Philp has... Why has this man got such a stupid name? Why is he called Mr. Philp? And he's called... Start again.